Hey guys, and welcome to Yoga and Wellness with Amanda. I'm Amanda, and in today's video we're going to be going over some restorative yoga poses. Now, traditionally when I teach a live restorative class, I'll have us hold poses anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, maybe even longer, depending on the energy in the room and the pose that we're in. For today's practice, we're going to be going through 3 different restorative poses, and we're going to begin class with a little bit of warm-ups, and then we're going to end on our backs. And the way that this class is going to be structured is I'm going to show you how to use some of these yoga props as tools for restorative yoga, and then I'm also going to talk about using some everyday items such as pillows and blankets and stuff like that. So we are going to do some warm-up stretches, and we're going to set up each pose. I'm going to show you an option with the either the yoga props or the everyday items, and then we're going to stay in that pose for a couple of minutes. And then before we transition to the next pose, I'm going to ring this bell, just like so, and that will signal that in a few breaths we're going to start moving around and change poses. At the very end of the class, I will let you know that practice is ending and you can stay in the final pose as long as you like. So let's get started. All right, so for restorative practice, if you have yoga blocks at your home, you can grab 2 to 4 yoga blocks, a yoga blanket, or a just kind of everyday blanket like for your couch or whatever, a yoga bolster, or if you have multiple yoga blankets, those can be stacked on top of one another to create a yoga bolster. Another great way to make your own yoga bolster is if you have like bath towels or beach towels, you can fold them up or roll them up and put them inside a pillowcase. It just is a little bit sturdier, and that'll make for a good bolster material. So if that's something, if you want to pause the video and grab a couple towels and shove them in a pillowcase real quick, do that. Also, you can use pillows sometimes in replacement of a bolster or a blanket, or in some cases a block. If we want to have a lot of support, we don't want to replace something hard like a block with something soft like a pillow, but in some cases it can work. Or just like your regular throw blanket we can use for something like that. So take a moment and pause the video and gather all your comfy materials. And I also recommend, if you get cold easily, maybe wear some slippers or some socks and like a sweater. Have something nearby in case you want to cover up, in case you get a little chilly in one of these poses. So go ahead and gather your materials and then we'll get started. All right, so before we begin our actual practice, I'm going to have us do just a few warm-up stretches. We don't want to do anything too vigorous. We just want to kind of come into practice and settle into our mat. So find an easy seated position, and if you'd like, close the eyes, or you can gaze softly at the floor in front of you. And I want us to take a few moments to connect with the breath. Really feel each inhale and exhale as it moves throughout the body. And take these first few breaths of practice to acknowledge that throughout practice you may experience some wandering thoughts or distractions in your surroundings, and that's okay. And we want to acknowledge those, but then come back to the breath and settle into practice. So you could focus on the breath by saying to yourself, I am breathing in, I am breathing out, or in and out. Anything like that to keep your mind focused on the breath if you find yourself easily distracted. And we'll take a few shoulder rolls here as we continue to allow the breath to deepen. switch from the shoulders to the neck. Allow the head to fall to either side. Front to back. And then I want us to kind of shift over onto hands and knees for a moment and do a few rounds of cat and cow. So come over onto all fours. You can either curl the toes or keep the tops of the feet flat on the mat. Hands shoulder width apart, knees hip distance apart. Inhale, bring the gaze forward, drop the belly for cow. And exhale, allow the head to hang, arch the spine for cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. One more. Inhale, cow. And exhale, cat. And return to a neutral spine. Awesome. We're going to return to our seat here, and I'm going to have us set up for our first restorative pose. So for this first pose, we're going to need at least 2 blocks and a yoga bolster or homemade yoga bolster. If you have an additional set of blocks or a set of pillows, go ahead and keep those nearby because we might need them. So what we're going to do is we are actually going to make a little seat rest out of our bolster and our blocks, and we are going to come into a Subta Badakanasana, reclined butterfly. So I'm going to show you how to set this up and then we'll get into the pose. So first we'll need 2 yoga blocks, and we're going to set the first one on the highest height and the second one on the lowest height, and they're going to be in an L right here, and essentially your body's going to go on this side here. Now depending on your bolster and the stability of your blocks, you might have to end up switching your second block this way, but we'll see once we get into it. So we'll set our 2 blocks up like so, and then we'll take our yoga bolster and just lean that on our blocks. Now, I need to move this a little bit closer. There we go. It looks a little wobbly, and to be honest, I think I'm gonna go with this height for this setup here. No, I'm not. This way. There we go. Just for a little extra support. And really it depends on the stiffness of your bolster and the stability of your blocks. So we'll set this up, and then we're going to put our body right on this side and our legs are going to go out here. So I'm going to move this on my mat, set the first block up here, second block up here, and then lay the bolster on top of the blocks like so. I'm going to move my additional props out of the way here. Set my pillows off to the side because I'm going to show you how we could potentially use those in a moment. And to get into this pose, I want you to grab the corners of your bolster and scoot your sit bones all the way up to that bolster, and then slowly recline back. And now, if you want to come into the full pose, Subta Badakanasana, you bring the soles of the feet to touch and allow the knees to hang out. Now this can be a little bit intense of a pose, so if you have more blankets or pillows or blocks, you can roll those up and put them underneath the knees for some added support. So this is a great way to incorporate both yoga props and everyday items into our practice. So our knees are supported, our feet are together, our bottom is grounded, and then we're just going to relax back on the bolster. Making any minor adjustments as needed. You can allow the hands to fall to the floor next to the body, or rest them on the belly, on the lap. I really like to let my hands fall to either side, creating a nice little shoulder opener on the bolster. And come back to the breath. A nice slow inhalation and exhalation. And if you'd like to close the eyes, I invite you to do so. And we're just going to stay here for a minute or two in silence. With every inhalation, inviting relaxing energy into the body. Every exhalation, letting go of something that no longer serves you. Whether that's physical tension or a wandering thought. Just give the body permission to surrender into the mat and into the props as the breath guides you deeper and deeper into the pose. Each exhalation becomes surrender. Each inhalation, renew. Notice if there's any areas of the body you feel like you might be holding on, maybe the hips, the shoulders, the low back, maybe you're clenching the jaw. Give those areas of the body permission to release, to let go, to soften. Slowly begin to gently flutter the eyes open, maybe wiggle the fingers and the toes. Reach the arms up overhead. Big good morning stretch. And we'll place the palms next to the hips on the mat. Slowly lift the head up off the bolster and press the body back up to seated. For our next pose, we're going to come into a supported child's pose. So we will need our bolster for this only. Setting any additional props to the side. Rotating onto our knees, removing our blocks, and bringing our bolster flat on the mat. We'll sit back on our heels, spread the knees wide on the mat, and just kind of tuck the bolster in between the legs. Another prop we could use for this pose if we need to is folding or rolling the blanket and using that in place of a bolster. Or we can use the blanket underneath the hips if the hips and the heels do not meet in this position. So then we're going to nestle the bolster between the knees, begin to walk the arms forward and bring the left cheek to the bolster. The hips are sinking towards the heels. The arms are relaxed at our sides.
allowing the eyes to close or the gaze to be soft. Using the breath as a tool to relax the body, soften into the pose. Repositioning the arms as needed to find the most comfortable position. And when you feel ready, we'll switch sides and bring the opposite cheek to the mat. Gently lift the head and bring the right cheek to the mat. When you feel ready, slowly begin to flutter the eyes open. Use the hands to press the body back up. Sit on the heels. Awesome. And for our final restorative pose, we are going to lay on our backs. So set the bolster to the side saddle the legs over. And what we're going to do is build a little stand for our legs and make a little pillow for our head. So you can use a yoga blanket, or if you have an actual pillow, we can use an actual pillow. Might as well, right? And what we're going to do is take our 2 yoga blocks, and when I was taught this pose, they called it Stonehenge, because we're going to take our 2 yoga blocks like so, and take our bolster and set it right on top. And what we're going to do is we're going to put our calves on here, so we're going to kind of be in like a little zigzag shape. So we're going to bring our Stonehenge, our blocks, and our bolster near our knees. Now this one, we do want our legs to kind of be pretty vertical, so we want our sit bones to be pretty close to our blocks. So what I like to do is kind of put both of my thighs, or not my thighs, my calves on the bolster here and scoot my booty close, pull my pillow in, and then recline down. This one might take a little bit of wiggling, and you might want to hold on to your bolster. That way nothing tips over. Reclining back, feeling the back body surrender into the mat. Allow the knees to fall out gently if that feels good. And bring one hand to the heart and one hand to the belly. Unclench the jaw, unfurrow the brow. And once again, send breath to any areas of the body that you might still be holding on to. Allow the inhales to lengthen and the exhales to lengthen as the breath deepens. Acknowledging any distractions in the room around you. Instead of allowing them to take up space in your mind, just allow them to pass. Bring the attention and the focus back on the breath. If you'd like to stay in this pose for a longer amount of time, I invite you to stay here. And if you're ready to close out practice, take a couple circles with the ankles and the wrists. And when you're ready, gently pull the knees into the chest. Rock from side to side. And then roll over onto your right or left side. Pausing here for a breath or two. Use the arm as a pillow, being mindful of the props around you. And then slowly and mindfully, when you feel ready, use the arms to press the body back up. And we'll come into a seated position and close out practice. Bring thumb knuckles to sternum. Inhale, reach up overhead.
And start center. Thumb knuckles to forehead. Gently bow the head. The beautiful, abundant, brightly shining light in me sees, honors, and respects that same light in each and every one of you. Namaste. I hope this practice helped you find some peace and relaxation, and I will leave you with that feeling, and I'll see you in the next video.